You flicked a lighter today, or you turned a stove knob, or you struck a match without looking at your fingers. You did not think about it, not even for a second. But there was a moment in human history when fire was the most terrifying thing your ancestors had ever seen. When it fell from lightning and consumed everything in its path, and nothing on earth had the ability to stop it. When every creature on the savannah, including your ancestors, ran from it in exactly the same direction, away. And then something changed. How did ancient humans learn to control fire? The answer is not a single invention, a single genius, a single moment of discovery. It is something slower, stranger, and far more profound than that. It is the story of how your species went from running from flames to carrying them, and why that single shift separated you from everything else that has ever lived on this planet. Start with the oldest evidence we have. In 2012, a team led by archaeologist Francesco Berna published findings from Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa. Burned bone fragments and plant ash dated to approximately 1 million years ago. 1 million, that is not Homo sapiens. That is not even close to your species. That is Homo erectus, an ancestor with a smaller brain, a heavier brow, a body built more for endurance than intelligence as you currently define it. And they were sitting around fire. Not lightning-struck trees, not accidental burns. Controlled, contained, repeated fire use inside a cave where wind and rain could not extinguish it. The choice of location alone tells you this was not luck. This was management. But here is what that date does not tell you. It does not tell you how they got there. 1 million years ago is the evidence of fire being managed. The learning, the terrifying, failed, burned hand process of figuring out how to manage it happened before that, possibly long before. And that process left no direct record in stone. What it left is inference, and the inferences are extraordinary. Primatologist Richard Wrangham at Harvard University has spent decades developing what he calls the cooking hypothesis. His argument is both simple and radical. Cooking food, applying heat to raw meat and plant matter, fundamentally changed what the human gut could extract from food. Cooked food is more digestible. It releases more calories per gram. It kills pathogens. It softens tissue that would otherwise require enormous jaw muscles and long digestive tracts to process. The result, Wrangham argues, is that fire did not just warm your ancestors. It rewired them. As cooking became regular, the human gut shrank. It no longer needed the length and complexity required to process raw food. The jaw became smaller, the teeth became smaller, and the energy saved from digestion was redirected to the organ that needed it most: the brain. Your large brain, the brain that makes you capable of language and art and mathematics and grief and love and everything else that separates you from every other species, may owe its existence to someone 1 million years ago or more who decided to stop running from a burning tree and instead drag something toward it. Now think about what that first act required. Not intelligence in the abstract, something more primitive and more difficult, the ability to override a biological imperative. Every cell in your ancestral body was screaming to move away from fire. Heat means burn. Burn means death. This is not a learned association. It is coded into your nervous system at the deepest possible level. To approach fire when every signal in your body says, flee, is not a small thing. It is one of the most radical acts in the history of life on Earth. How did they do it? The most credible reconstruction from researchers studying early human cognition is that curiosity won. Slowly. Over generations, perhaps a wildfire passed through and left behind cooked animals. Prey that was easier to eat, more calorie-dense, more immediately rewarding than raw food. Perhaps one individual, braver or more desperate than the others, tried the cooked meat while the embers were still warm, and lived and was stronger for it. And the group noticed. This is how learning works without language, not through explanation, through observation, imitation, and the survival of those who got it right. Once fire was understood as manageable, the challenge shifted to transportation. A fire you find is useful only where it burns. A fire you carry is a tool you take anywhere. The evidence suggests early humans transported fire long before they could reliably create it. They kept embers alive, carried in bundles of slow burning material, tended constantly, never allowed to go out, the way you might carry water in a container. Fire as a living thing to be fed and kept rather than struck from scratch. The technology of making fire from nothing, friction, spark, tinder, came later. And it came not as a single invention, but as a convergence of techniques discovered independently across populations that had already learned, through generations of tended embers, exactly what fire needed to survive. By the time your species, Homo sapiens, past emerged, fire was not a discovery. It was an inheritance. A technology so old, so embedded in human daily life, that it had already begun shaping the social structure of the groups that used it. Fire meant a central point, a place to gather after dark, a circle of warmth and light that excluded predators and included members of the group. That circle, researchers argue, is the origin of human social bonding as you still practice it today. When you gather around a table or a campfire or any shared light source, you are doing something your nervous system recognizes from before it had words for recognition. You are doing what your species has done every night for 1,000,000 years or more. You are drawing the circle. You are keeping the fire alive. You are inside the oldest room your species ever built. It had no walls, it had no roof, it had only light and warmth, and the understanding, slowly arrived at over more generations than you can count, that the thing that once tried to kill you was now the thing keeping you safe. That understanding did not come from a genius. It came from every burned hand, every watched ember, every cold night that made the risk of going back worth taking again. It came from curiosity that was stronger than fear. You still have that curiosity. It is the same thing that made you want to know this story, and it is the oldest thing about you.